So yeah, sorry about that. I'm not the Stanley Parable crashed, and I had to restart. So apologies for that. I'm not sure what happened, but don't know what happened. Very, very odd. Interesting. Nonetheless, here I am again. I don't expect anyone to show up anymore because it kind of crashed. But nonetheless, I'm going to continue with Stanley Parable and see what happens. If it happens again, then it seems to be some type of glitch with the game that's causing. So I will see how that goes. But that is intriguing. That has never happened before. Mind you, I haven't played all of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe to compare, but still, it shut down. So that is very strange. All right. 5:53 p.m., your favorite time of day. Or could you simply not resist giving me the correct time again? After all, I know how much you enjoy setting the time correctly. Okay, now I'm curious how accurate 5:53 p.m. is. Let's use another slider to find out. How accurate is 5:53 p.m.? Oh, it's very accurate. You know, can I just say, regardless of the accuracy of the clock, I'm having a great time adjusting these settings. I feel like I'm learning more about you and how you like things to be set. It's good to collect data. I wish we had more sliders. We'll be gone through all the sliders I have. Perhaps I can invent some new sliders to gather new data on you. Shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, let me whip a couple new ones up. Should be ready by the next time you boot up the game. Interesting. Alright, so starting over again. So Stanley is at his desk here. Got an achievement.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
So going through this, I'm curious if it'll happen again, because if it does happen again, it's a glitch with the game that's causing it. It crashed right here.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Alright, so this is where the game messes with you in terms of choice. The narrator's telling me to go on the left, but there's 2 open doors, right? So you either follow the directives given to you, or you be a bad person and go another route. But we're going to follow the narrator. Alright. See, these pictures are starting to repeat. Here's the meeting room.
There was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff to see. So this game is all about detail. So you definitely want to take the time to read these things, because it does give you lore on the game. This page contains no information.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
All right, so you walk upstairs.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him, and so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
2845. I am the most expensive boss. Carte blanche. Font et Mont Blanc. Sewage Lilies by Claude Money.
Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
2845.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Now where does this lead?
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
It's a pretty big office, huh?
Straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
See, there's always a choice. The game wants me to go this way.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Thus the mystery starts to unravel. Or does it?
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Employee fired. 600 employees. Let's see, over by 234, there's a different screen.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life, for he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Ooh. Now, how would you do that, Stanley? Go to the power. Mind control. Idle, awaiting input.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Turn it off. Again, apologies for the game just crashed. Had to restart it.
Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
So this would be one of the many endings that this game has.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
That's the good ending. Quote, good ending. Got an achievement for beating the game. So the whole idea, like I said, this is like Groundhog's Day. You start by repeating. So the narrator tells you from the beginning to leave the door, right? So what happens if you close yourself in?
Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No, this couldn't go anywhere except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
There you go, that's another thing. So again, you just explore every single possibility of what to do. And that's how you go about the game. So it just resets.
Gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
So then this is where you start diverting from the path. So the game wants you to go to this hallway over here. And then it wants you to take the left door.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he he entered the door on his left.
So instead of going on the door to the left, well, actually, what you could do is you could take the door to the left, but then not follow the instructions about going on the stairs. So, like, there's that.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
So then you go through. So he tells you to go up.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
But you go downstairs instead. So what does that bring you? It's just different things, you know? I wonder, can I grab this note? Would be nice to see what it says. This game is all about the lore.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon.
Yeah, it's just looping.
Back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over.
Loco Manzana, what's up, buddy?
Back to my job.
How are you doing? Happy Friday to you.
The buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
I am okay.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Oh.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Well, that's one other ending. So, was Stanley sleeping the whole time? Did he expire? Leave it up to you. That's the thing about this game. There are many endings. Think of it as a choose-your-own-adventure book. You know, those books from back in the day where it'd be like, hey, if you decide to do this, turn to page 59. If you decide to do this, turn to page 76. You know, and from there, that's basically what this game is. It is just a way
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
to go through so many different possibilities. And it may seem repetitious at first, but there are so many things. Oh, look at that, new content. So this is the Ultra Deluxe, the new stuff that you see. So that door wasn't there before.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
So now what I'm going to do is, again, choose your own adventure. So I'm going to, again, go to the left. Go to my boss's office, but instead of doing the mind control facility, I'm going to go to where it said escape.
There was a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Or even the executive bathroom. Money in the morning, money in the evening. Money for breakfast, money crisp. Extreme bathrooms. All right. What about here? Now there's something there. Business strategy, yikes. Outdoors monthly, shapes, exclusive. Lenny Smith talks about his new box. So again, this is something else. This could be something else that you do. So that's another possibility. But you know what? I'm going to go through this.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet, and so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
So again, now doing this, I'm going to go down. But instead of going to the mind control facility, I go to the escape route. And that's another ending. So you make this game what you will.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
But no, I'm going to take this route.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
So this hallway is just looping over and over again. It's just not ending.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Notice I was a different narrator. What happened?
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
This game is very, very surreal.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Nature paintings. So these are the paintings you see in the office that just get repeated over and over again. Stanley's computer. Office layout. This blueprint shows the office from the beginning of the game. The path from Stanley's office to the two doors was the first part of the game that was built. Sections have been added and altered throughout development, though the core layout remains almost identical to the first iteration. So this is Stanley's office. This is where you started. These are his co-workers' cubicles. You walk through the hallway. More cubicles, more hallways, and then you get to the hallway with the two doors. Corridor. The pacing of this opening section was important to get right. This corridor has been moved and altered to make sure the player reaches the two doors in a good time. The two doors. The set of the two open doors was the very first concrete piece of the Stanley Parable's design. Once this room was created, the rest of the game emerged as an extension of it. an exploration of the contradiction this room posed. Random desk. The office. Button sounds, a selection of the sounds used throughout the game when buttons are pressed. Each sound is a mix of a keyboard stroke and a synthesized tone. Filing cabinets. Office computers, so one with a installation screen, installing Chart Pro 2.01. Program files Chart Pro ptp.dll. You got Solitaire, and then employee database. Current time 18. Kernel clock error, please reset. And these are the credits of the team who developed this game. The impeccable Kevin Brighting as the narrator. Based on the work of the Stanley Parable 2013 team. So again, from here, there's a couple hallways you can go through. So this is kind of like a museum. Again, this is very meta. The office maintenance room, an early version of the maintenance room. Got a scanner, copier. More screens of the office. Ultra Deluxe announcements. In December 2018, we announced the Ultra Deluxe version of the Stanley Parable at the Game Awards. These are screenshots of the videos we made for the announcement and the game's delay. Warzone. Early in development, we designed an ending where Stanley would end up on a battlefield fighting aliens. The action game would become sentient and would wage war against the narrator. We realized shortly after starting to build it that it was far too jokey and on the nose for the tone of the game. Plus, some people interpreted it as making fun of people who like shooters, which was not our intention. Then, before I do that, let me go back downstairs here and see what this hallway has to offer. Office clock, which is a working clock, mind you. Boss's office, screens from the development of the boss's office. The one in the middle is the one that actually ended up being. The lounge, underground, an early version of the underground portion of the game.
Push the number 4. Now then, this elevator for sure will get him right back on track to where he was supposed to be in the story. Now look closely, Stanley. See how it's impossible for the player to do anything in this room? Perfect example of poor level design, textbook mistake. It's the kind of thing you'd pick up on intuitively if you had even the most fundamental understanding of good and bad game design. But of course, you being you, you'll probably spend the next hour trying to solve it. Here, I'm just going to make this easy on you.
Narration Outtakes. Kevin Brighting, the voice of the narrator, recorded dialogue for the entire game roughly 3 separate times over the 2 years of development. These are clips from early takes that were not used in the final game.
The orange lever. Still nothing? I don't know. Well, in that case, I'll tell you what, you win. Congratulations. You did it. I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off, so good job.
Again, you could stick around there for a while and see what that has to offer. Again, this game goes as deep as you want to take it, as long as you're willing to go. Freedom ending. This was the very first incarnation of the freedom ending in the game's alpha. Countdown desk. One of the desks from an early version of the countdown ending. You know what, I'm actually missing all of this, so I need to go back this way. Go around. This is where I was before. The lounge, an early version of the lounge. Cargo lift. The second version of is functionally the same as what's in the final game, but we wanted it to look more like a place where cargo was actually stored. Cargo lift was always intended to offer the choice of staying on or jumping to a different path. However, after this early version, we decided we also wanted the option of the player falling to their death. The apartment timer. In a previous version of the choice leading to the apartment ending, the timer would give you 15 seconds to pick up the phone. Not picking up the phone would lead to a different ending. Meeting room. Maintenance layout. A flow of hallways following the first two doors was important to get right, since players will replay them so many times. We discussed a number of designs, but ultimately it was the simplest version that won out. So basically this is the hallway with the two doors, and basically where you go decides on the ending or the path that you'll end up doing. That's that. Escape menu. For a long time, we had an ending that only ended when the player restarted from the escape menu. Unfortunately, very few players realized this was what they were supposed to do, which was frustrating for everyone. Zending. This screenshot depicts an early version of the ending known as the Zending, which was eventually cut and merged with another part of the game. Zending levers. These levers were originally a part of the Zending. The player would pull a lever and the narrator would describe what color they had pulled. Zending model. The Zending went through many iterations. This room represents the fourth version of the ending, and we thought it was complete, but decided to abandon and change it again shortly before launch. Countdown room, an early version of the countdown room. Monitor room elevator. For a time, the elevator in the monitor room could go up or down, with freedom above and countdown below. We abandoned this when players found it too difficult to remember what was up and what was down, and placed the two endings together instead. Freedom ending. This is the freedom ending as it existed in beta. Again, a lot of just meta, a lot of meta things here, which I find to be fascinating. Alright, so then you leave.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
So the Stanley Parable. On or off?
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
So that's one way, and it'll probably bring me to the office again. So again, that's another ending. Now, what if you do that? And this is probably the last thing I'll do.
What could it mean?
We are going overtime here.
Go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Now, what if I do that and then run through, and like she said,
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors. He entered the door on his left.
do the escape. But then listen to what she says.
Person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
So then go to the boss's office.
The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Could he really be all alone? This was too much for Stanley to take. Too much for any man to take. He fell to his knees, bursting into half moans, half sobs, the guttural retching of life from a man denied any hope, any reason to keep going. Here on the floor he lay prone, paralyzed by fear for nearly a full hour. But when at last he began to move about and survey the situation, he found a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could it mean? Was it a sign of hope for Stanley's future? Alas, it was not. For although this keypad guarded the terrible secret of Stanley's past, it had been assigned a 4-digit code so devious and so random that no man could ever hope to guess it. 2845. Statistically, nearly impossible to guess blindly, ever. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
So I'm going to try to follow what she says and see if that leads to a different ending. And that's the thing about this game is I've done the other endings many years ago, but they've added new things here too. So it's things may have changed. They have changed, just I don't know when.
Straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
And he's not wrong, because you get smushed.
Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Then you drop. Get a loading screen into the next part.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly. Yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
So you go up, and then over this way, and the exit is over here.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save those two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time...
Alright, so that's another one where you can do that. So yeah, there's just lots of ways to do this, and it all ends, it begins the same way in this hallway, but depending on your intuition, depending on how curious you are, you take it as far as it goes. That's the whole thing about this game. It's you really need to experience it for yourself, go at your own pace. Really interesting game, and it's very, very tongue-in-cheek, very funny. I do highly recommend it. Again, Ultra Deluxe is one that just recently came out, and it's very cool. So that is that for today. Apologies for the crash on the stream there. I don't know what happened, but nonetheless, thank you those of you who stopped by earlier for the Mega Man goodness, and apologies again for it crashing before. But nonetheless, hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend. Hopefully you have a good one with your family or loved ones. Please be safe. And yeah, we will see you next Friday on the NPL Video Game Club. So let me switch to that on over. And we will see you next week. Again, Fridays, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Norwalk Public Library YouTube channel. On behalf of the library, this is Aldo signing off. Hopefully you have a fantastic time. Enjoy the weather, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the beautiful nature and the beauties of the world. So please be kind to one another. A little bit of kindness goes a long way towards your fellow person. And take care. We will see you next week, right here on the NPL Video Game Club. Take care, everybody.